So to kick us off, we've got an exciting session. We talked about fake content earlier, we talked about creative strategies for content, and we talked about using entertainment content to redevelop and rebrand a country. So this afternoon, we're looking around content from a different perspective, and in particularly, our first session is all around how people are spending less time actually visually looking at screens and the way that you can engage with people in a voice-activated world. So, to take us there is a good friend of the festival and a good friend of ours. It is Marco Bertozzi, VP of Sales for Spotify.
Thank you, Jeremy. Afternoon, everyone. When was the first Festival of Media, Jeremy?
12 years ago.
Venice. Was it Venice?
Yeah.
What year was that? 12 years. Can't do maths. Yeah, I was there. That seems a lifetime away. Thank you very much for having us back, and thank you for leaving the terrace and coming to. I always dread the 2:30. It's nice glass of bubbly on the terrace kind of slot, but I appreciate you all coming today. So I was trying to think of. I could have titled this presentation any number of different things. I've been at Spotify 18 months. For those that don't know, I did 20 years on the media agency side before then. And really in the last 18 months, I've been sort of listening to advertisers and agencies, both creative and media, and having lots of discussions around where Spotify fits into the world and streaming and audio in general. And so I kind of see this presentation as, I want to try and do three things. One is give you an idea of where the landscape is now, and hopefully get certainly the agencies and brands in the room, get you sort of asking yourself the question of whether you're doing enough in this space. And then secondly, I want to really try and make the point that not all audio is radio, because that is one of the most common things that comes up with people is, I don't do radio, or we don't do radio, or we just like pictures. And so I just want to hopefully challenge some of that as we go through today. And lastly, a few ideas and a few examples of where things have worked really well. But it wouldn't be a Spotify presentation without some reference to music. And I wanted to talk about this, which doesn't look like much up there, but it is actually a map, a global map of the tracking of 1,600 cities that Spotify does and creates the most typical sort of flavor of each of those cities. So we've actually done one for Rome. Anyone who's on Spotify at the end, if you want this playlist, or even now, you can probably try and take a photo if you know how to use the photo function, and you can download this playlist straight into your Spotify account. So this is a playlist that is just for Rome. So this is our analysis of all of Rome's music and everything that everyone's listening to. For those that don't know, if you go to the search button on your app and then press the little camera icon in the top right, you can take a picture of that and it should suck it into your account, if not come up afterwards. But here is a song that I've never heard of in my life, but any Italians in the room, especially from Rome, you tell me if it's what you think of it.
La ricordi Lella, quella ricca, la moglie dei proietti, il canataro, quello che c'ha il negozio certitore.
I won't play it all, but that was just one of the tracks on there, so you can tell me, when you see the playlist, you can tell us how spot on we are. So we've talked about an audio renaissance, and when I joined Spotify, I think the truth is they hired me to talk about video and programmatic and tech, and that's all the stuff that I was doing before. But actually, I've spent the last 18 months talking exclusively, it seems, about audio. It's such a massive area, and it absolutely is having this huge renaissance. And I really wanted to come back to my early point about not all audio is radio, because that is fundamental. If you said to someone, do you do video, right? If we include video to be everything from cinema down to a Facebook ad, people, you don't look at the world like that, right? Some people, yeah, we do cinema and we do TV, but we don't do this. We might not do video on YouTube or whatever. It's the same with audio. Audio is no longer now just radio. And we are seeing this huge spike in how people are interacting with audio. And that's what I want to explore a little bit today, is just to sort of highlight all the different areas now that people, and actually some of the most sought after people are, are now listening. So we're going to put a couple of people far brighter than me up just to do a quick commentary on this space.
Brands underestimate the power of audio tremendously.
I would say I'm consuming music 80% of the time I'm awake.
I think the advantages of audio are the ability to participate in this very emotional, very personal experience.
Hearing is the only sense that can move us both physically and emotionally.
No matter what you're feeling, if you play a certain song, it could make you feel warm, it can make you feel happy, it can make you lovesick.
Music and advertising always kind of went hand in hand. You know, we used to have this saying, music sells everything but music.
The creative really should be oriented around the consumer state of mind, the consumer mood.
You have a captive audience with 100% share of voice at that moment in time to deliver a story about your brand in a very emotional context.
You can add another dimension to it, voice inflection, sounds, the ability to make a scene, and I think that's a very unique thing.
Future for audio. It's a really exciting time.
Voice is going to play a big role in just the future of technology.
When you marry those two things, advertiser first-party data and publisher first-party data, you've got a real opportunity for customization of message and customization of experience.
It's the morning of the second digital revolution in music that's going to create tremendous value.
There's people up there, Troy Carter in particular, these are people that I actively avoid around the office whenever I'm over there, because I never want them to find out how uncool their head of sales for VP of Europe is when it comes to music taste. An old colleague described me as a 14-year-old girl trapped in a man's body. So it's best I don't talk to him. But all of this is very relevant for our music industry. It has been a revolution, streaming overall. So, between 99 and probably 2010, the industry halved and was only going one way. So it's incredible that only a few years later, streaming across all platforms is now the biggest revenue stream for these companies. And it's just a reflection on how people are behaving. And we all have conversations with people who are saying, oh, well, I still like to buy my CDs and I prefer something to touch. And all of that's true. And I think in the UK, actually, record sales have just outstripped CD sales, which is a pretty crazy stat. But anyway, so, this is a reflection on what's happening in our business. It's big, it's only getting bigger, all the predictions. And that's important because streaming of music is also then expanding into other areas such as podcasts, which we'll talk about. And, these are the latest stats for us. I think the most interesting thing is the 2 billion playlists, because those playlists are telling us so much about what people are doing. Every time someone creates a playlist around a particular activity, that's something that as an advertiser is giving you a signal about what you can target, what mood people are in, and what activity they're doing. So through the day, across all these different devices, you've got people who are streaming and listening to audio. And, if you look at the UK stats, that's on average 9 hours a week. If you look at millennials, that's 2 hours a day. And actually, Gen Z audiences now are spending more time with Spotify than they are with YouTube in an average day. So that is fundamentally important when you, as an advertiser, are trying to associate with and put your brand in front of people who are, now spending their time slightly differently. And the big topic of the day now is podcasts. Who listens to podcasts in the room, just out of interest? Yeah, I mean, I just wonder, there's probably lots of, early adopters, but I wonder if I'd have asked that question even a year ago, it would have been less. But it is an area that is growing, and it's incredibly important because if you combine now podcast content with music, then people are going to start to curate their own environments when it comes to listening behaviors, whether it's in the car or the office or anything else. So we want to move beyond the screen. We can't always plan everything around the screen. And, I mentioned the car. The car is an incredible environment for us now. By 2020, they reckon there'll be 220 million connected cars. Now, even today, for Spotify, we can allow people to target those who are listening to Spotify in the car. Okay, so for years, we've been targeting the commuter with radio because we're working on the basis that between 7 and 9, they might be in a car and they might be listening to the radio. Now we know we know that they're in the car and we know they're listening. So that is an incredibly important part for us. And I had a conversation with Daniel Echt when I first joined. And one of the things that I found really interesting about what he said was, people like the radio in the morning in the car because you're pulling together different types of content. That's what the radio show basically does. But in fact now, if you think people are going to have their favorite podcasts and their music, they're going to start to curate, almost do their own radio shows in the car. And that is an environment that obviously any advertiser can be part of. It's also in the office. I think in the world of open plan offices that we have today, a lot of headphones on in the office. I think the older members of the audience sort of look at it and go, I remember the days when people used to speak to each other, but it's a reality now. People listen in the office. And we did some research with LinkedIn that showed that, people are motivated. It's helping them motivate through their working day. So I think the car, the office, and I'm probably sure most of you have experimented with the connected speakers in the home. Music has been set free in the home now. It used to be the one room, wherever you set your stereo up, was like, okay, we've got to get into that room because that's where my nice speakers are. Now we've got an environment where music is set free across the house and obviously voice activated, which is incredibly important for the younger generations. I know for sure that my son I find him sort of chatting with Alexa. I'm not sure what they're chatting about, but he seems to quite often get annoyed with her. But anyway, that is now an area. And before long, as an advertiser, you're going to be asked to have an Alexa strategy and a Sonos strategy and a whatever else, Google Home strategy. Hopefully, what we're trying to do is to bring all that together with Spotify and give you a Spotify strategy across all of these different devices. It was in the video for those that you were watching, but I thought this 79% figure is really, really important. If you think about all the environments now that the connected home and car is giving people, when they're on PlayStation, when they're doing their commute into work, when they are at work, hopefully not watching too much video, when they're in the gym running, all these different, add all those environments up for the millennial audience, for the Gen Z audience. None of those environments allow you to put a video in front of them. So this is an opportunity as a brand to start thinking about, well, how am I going to reach that really valuable audience? And there are so many different touch points. As a media owner, if we describe ourselves as a platform and media owner, we're trying to help now advertisers string that together. Because you can, if you're listening to an audio ad in the car, we can then show them a video ad later in the day, for instance. So you can start to combine things. But these are all the touch points that you really want to be part of. And we've come from a world where, video is our default, and there's nothing wrong with it. We love video as well. We do video at Spotify. But we've come from a world where creatives think video first, and they think about headlines and pictures and video. And companies like McDonald's do, just to show an example, they do all of that stuff, obviously, as many, many other brands do. But then they've been very, very consistent about. And when I was going through this presentation, I clicked on that, and my son was like, Dada, why are you listening to McDonald's? And I'm like, he's 7. So, they've been very consistent about that. Now, that is a very, that's a very sort of macro element to it. There's a lot more to it. But that is, something that's so important, especially to this generation, that are going to be, surrounding this thing and talking to it and listening to it all the time. So 5 things that we just wanted to highlight. The first thing is, again, rather than sort of say you should or you shouldn't, I guess it's questions for everyone to think about. Like, what are you investing in this area? And if the truth be known, and from based on a lot of conversations I've had, this is not sexy at the moment because so many people are still thinking radio, right? Creative agencies can't go to South Africa, or don't need to go to South Africa to film an audio ad, right, or record one. And the fees are different, and it's not what we've done, and we're a visual brand, et cetera, et cetera. But if you think about all those environments we've been in, what a great opportunity. What an opportunity for someone. And obviously lots of companies have been in it. So we'll have a quick fire round. Hands up, this brand. Intel. Come on, chat it out, that one. T-Mobile. Close. Xbox. Close. Well, they're doing all right. They've been doing that about 10 years. They've nearly got it right. But, so these are all just these sonic triggers. But also it's about voice. There's this, for the English people in the room, you may recognize this guy. He's basically a soap opera star. And in a weird, it just shows how weird some of these celebrities' lives are. He also happens to do the voiceover of a big insurance company in the US. And when he stopped doing that, there was a lot of anger about, the fact that the voice had changed and it's not the same guy we're used to listening to, and we used to love his voice. So again, it's like, this is a very literal example, but that consistency of your message and your tone is really important. Guidelines, again, question mark in terms of who's doing those, who's not, but again, very important. Bring them to the fore as something that is important. But actually now, what I think is the stuff that we get most excited about working with advertisers is how we start to use audio to change our creative and be more adaptive. So I'm going to show you just an example now. This is all audio ads. I'll show you, there's an image, but it's audio ads. There were 48,000 different versions of this ad.
Breakfast, the most important meal of the day, right? You could do what you always do and grab something, anything. Or, how about this? Deliveroo. You're thinking, what, Deliveroo on a Wednesday morning? But just imagine, a smoothie to kickstart your day with that amazing avocado and egg dish from your favorite brunch place. Sounds good, right? Deliveroo, the food you love delivered. Available now in Brighton. Search online and download the app.
Really simple ad, but all the variables in there, day of week, morning, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then obviously location, and there was weather data as well. 46,000 different copies of that. Very simple, very effective for this brand. They loved it, and they're seeing the sales uplift from it. So that's something that, again, we just want to see more and more of. Right now, if I'm completely honest, we do not see enough of this. Most advertisers are not doing this. So it is such a massive opportunity for people to embrace. This is my favorite one, I think, that we've done recently. So there's a Snickers campaign, and it's called, it's all about you're not yourself when you're hungry. And I think it's a global campaign. And so we did something really interesting with this. What we did is we bucketed up listeners into those people that were listening to pop, rock, and grime. And we followed these group of listeners. And then every time someone in one of those genres went off and listened to something completely different, we played them an ad that was in the tone of whatever their favorite genre was, okay? So if they love pop and they went and listened to classical, they would get a pop ad that would be basically telling them to come back, because they're obviously not themselves today, and to get a Snicker. So I'm going to play the grime one. You've got to kind of keep up with it, because it's in that kind of slightly hard to listen to, but you'll hear some great lines in there.
Yo, what you listening to, blood? It's strange, not that we're ones to jar. Just out of character, I've got to admit, is this your mum's account? Is this legit? Or is it because you're hungry? Feeling rather spacey or maybe confused? Help me out, please, and get this situation diffused. Did he not have dinner or not enough lunch? Grab a chocolate bar, go have a little munch. I'm not having this, bruv, this is out of order. This artist can't even play the recorder. Sort this out, fill that hole, get this whole situation under control. Sort this out, fill that hole, get this whole situation under control. It's what your gran would listen to, have some Snickers, get back to being you. You're not you when you're hungry, and neither is your music taste. Stop being so spacey, grab the Snickers and get back to the tracks you love.
Nice. Simple, but really well executed, great creative, and currently shortlisted for all those awards just this year. So it's cutting through by using our data, some great creative, and you can see the output. So just to wrap up for us, I'm not going to spend too long on Spotify, but we've talked a lot about audio, but just quick video really to give you a sense of all the stuff going on, from podcasts to co-creation that we can work with you on, obviously to the audio stuff. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of Spotify because it's moving pretty fast at the moment.
This is Mogul, a new podcast from Spotify.
Hey, you watching Rap Caviar, you heard?
Every Friday, we've got music videos, artist interviews, and a look behind the scenes.
And we're looking to partner across all of those different areas with advertisers. It's such an exciting space at the moment. And the way we look at Spotify now is, we used to be a music player, now we're part of culture. And whether it's things like the Rap Caviar playlist you saw up there, our biggest one in the US, to Who We Be in the UK, which is the biggest grime, but also just what people are doing. Okay, so when David Bowie sadly passed on, we see these massive spikes in how people respond. When we had the Total Eclipse recently, Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart spiked 3,000%. And we haven't got it in here, and I don't know why, because I loved it, but we have this one of the US, where we literally measured that song, and it just lit up over the US states as the eclipse sort of passed over, so it was pretty cool. But that is what we're trying, that currently now is where Spotify sees itself, part of culture. In we're bringing concerts and live tours and so on. We're really bringing it to life and letting fans get close to it. And it's giving us streaming intelligence now that we've been gathering 10 years worth to help us associate advertisers with these listeners. And we talked about the playlists earlier, but it's giving us ideas of moods and mindsets and activities to allow advertisers to associate with it. And most importantly, it's a very safe environment, and it's a hot topic at the moment, but, zero fraud, 100% share of voice, very, very high viewability. It's built for viewability, so it is, for us, we think, a real opportunity for advertisers. So that's it. They're my three things. I just want really people to go away today, have a think about what more they could do in the audio space, and to recognize that not all audio is radio, which is something that is a big bugbear. And of course, we would be more than happy if you want to come and chat to us about how we can help in that space. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. I think I also think there was 2 other things we learned: how to use the camera to scan playlists is very good, and the fact that you've got terrible music taste. But apart from that, no, all good.
Don't dig into it.
You had packed out room for this first session. There must be some questions amongst the audience here. Who's going to be brave enough to ask the first question of this afternoon? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, well, you convinced us pretty well that sonic branding works and advertising on Spotify works too, but I'm a premium Spotify subscriber and I don't get any ads on there, so how you can reach people like me?
Well, we within Spotify, as you know, we have the premium and the free. They're actually, the reason people are in premium or in free is many and varied, but we can only operate obviously within the free tier. But the demographics of the people in the free are very similar to those in the premium, maybe just slightly younger, but very similar because people, at the end of the day, people have a finite amount of money about where they want to spend, and some choose music because they love music, so they want a premium account, and some will say, well, actually, I prefer to have a movie subscription and just get 30 million free songs on my free account. So there's a lot of similarities between the two, but as far as Spotify is concerned, we're obviously only, what we're talking about here today, we're talking about the free tier, which we recently relaunched just a couple of weeks ago. So it's going to be an amazing experience for any people on the free tier.
Good answer to a tricky question.
Is it as tricky? No, yeah, it's as tricky. But the telcos around the world are offering a premium service as their advantage. So actually, telcos are competing with that free Spotify segment, I would say. So how?
Well, I mean, we have partnered with telcos, and in some cases we see that as something that's symbiotic for us, and in other cases we don't. So the only way the telcos can get the free is offer free is when we agree it. So that's something that we take on a case-by-case basis.
Anyone else have any questions out in the audience? Yes, microphone coming to you just there.
Yeah, so just a question around brand recall. Is there a difference or relationship from a purely audio perspective and a visual perspective around brand recall?
Well, we've seen, so we obviously track all these things. We've tracked lots and lots of campaigns when it comes to brand recall in audio. So we have, any number of case studies around that. I think where we saw the area that was quite interesting for us was the combination of video and audio. And we did, in the US, we did a load of case studies with Nielsen Catalina, which is basically tracking sales in store. And we saw, I can't remember 100% of the number, I'll have to check it for you, but it was 20-30% increase in in-store sales when we combine the video and the audio together on the platform. So, I mean, the answer is yes. Whenever we track it, you do have increased brand recall. And I think there was a case study up there versus display as well. It is a very, if you think about it, it is a very personal environment. And I think radio has always had that sort of, that sense of, I'm listening, it's one-to-one. But really, that was a broadcast channel. We've now taken the best of those attributes and brought them into an environment where we can apply data and we can understand through what they're doing, their moods, the pace of the music, the playlists. We can understand a lot more about that moment in time, whether they're in a car or on PlayStation or whatever they're doing. And what we're trying to do is combine that data, all that sense of intimacy when so many people are listening in headphones, and bring the right advertisers to that. And the missing ingredient is the creative at the end of the day. If you're going to make the most of that combination of factors, then you've got to have a good creative. If you play a sort of tingy-tangy radio ad in Spotify, you really notice the difference.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marco. Much appreciated. Let's give Marco a big round of applause.
Thank you.